Thank you. Number 3. Yes, ma'am. Now, could you state your full name for me, please?
Yeah, it's Kayla Kelly, Kayla Kelly.
And where are you currently employed?
Well, we're having problems with our audio, and that microphone seems to think it's working any better. And we'll speed up a little bit to that microphone and try to speak directly into it, and then we help.
All right, where are you currently employed?
I'm currently employed at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation in Nashville Crime Lab, and I work specifically in the toxicology unit.
How long have you been working there?
Almost 3 years now.
All right, and you said you work in the toxicology unit?
Yes.
And what is it that you do there?
So my main job duties is I will analyze biological fluids such as blood and urine for the presence of alcohol and other impairing substances. I'll report my findings and I testify those findings in court.
And where did you get your education?
I went to Austin Peay State University, where I graduated with a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry with a concentration in forensic chemistry.
And when did you graduate?
In 2012.
And as far as your work experience, did you, correct me if I'm wrong, how long did you say you've been at the TBI?
For almost 3 years.
Okay. And did you attend any sort of technical training once you joined the TBI that would enable you to be able to do this job?
Yeah. So once I started at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, I went through an extensive training program that lasted a little over 6 months. Within that training program, I had to perform different competency tests where my training officer would basically test me. She would give me a sample where she knew the concentration of the results and I didn't, and I would perform the test on it and report those results to her, and I passed those successfully. I also gave multiple presentations while I was in training. Those presentations included talking about the instrumentation we used, as well as the methodology, and then specifically pharmacology and how alcohol affects an individual while operating in the vehicle.
Okay. And did you do specific courses on the effect of alcohol as it relates to driving a motor vehicle?
Not in my collegiate career, but after I completed my internal training at Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, I was able to attend a course called the Robert F. Borkenstein course on alcohol and highway safety. It's a week-long course that toxicologists will go to, and they learn more about how alcohol affects the body and how that can affect somebody's ability to operate a motor vehicle.
Okay. And you also did an alcohol field sobriety study with Tennessee Highway Patrol?
Yes, I've done multiple, we call them either wet labs or drinking studies. And I worked with the Tennessee Highway Patrol a few times where I both participated and observed. And that's where new cadets will go through school and volunteers will actually be dosed to a certain blood alcohol concentration, usually around a 0.08, and then they will they'll allow the cadets to practice the standardized field sobriety test. And I both participated and observed in multiple of those drinking studies.
Okay. I would like to stipulate, or I'm sorry, not stipulate, I would like to introduce Agent Kelly's CV and ask that this court consider her an expert for purposes of testifying about the effect of alcohol as it relates to driving a motor vehicle.
Dr. Festerson, you have a response?
No objection.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to introduce this CV. This is the curricula vitae of Agent Kelly, and this court is qualifying her as an expert witness in the field of toxicology relating to alcohol in the blood.
Thank you, Judge.
You may proceed.
Thank you. All right, and Ms. Kelly, did you test the blood that you received from Mr. Singleton? Did you perform the test on that?
Yes,
Okay, and did you receive blood at the lab in Nashville?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and is there a form that comes with that blood kit?
Yeah, it's the blood, I believe it's the alcohol toxicology request form is what it's officially called.
All right, and you want me to approach the witness? Could you identify this document for me, please?
Yes, this is a true and accurate copy of the alcohol toxicology request form that was submitted with this case.
Okay, and down at the bottom of that form, is that where your agency marks when they receive the blood and who they got it from?
Yes, the bottom portion where it says for laboratory use only, that's where the technician who actually physically received the blood tube into the lab filled out all the information for the time, how she received the blood sample, and what was in the kit.
Okay, if you don't mind, could you please pass that to the judge? You're allowed to introduce that as exhibit number 4. I'm sorry, I forgot that. And so can you just explain to the jury when a law enforcement agency drops off blood, how that blood is kept secure and tamper-proof until it's tested?
So blood alcohol kits, I actually have an example of a blood alcohol kit, if that's okay, I can show the jury.
That'll be up to the judge, because she wants to show them blood alcohol.
Just for demonstration.
So repeat that.
Yeah, I have a blood alcohol kit box for demonstration, if I can show the jury.
Any objection?
No objections.
You need an individual to demonstrate that
No,
blood.
no, it's just a box. It just looks like this. And then inside that box, there are 2 gray milliliter test tubes, or gray topped 10 millimeter test tubes that are provided to local agents. And in those kits also come blank request forms too that I was just talking about. So the actual blood kits will be received into the TBI one of 2 ways. They can be mailed in either to USPS, FedEx, or UPS, really anything with a tracking number, or they can be hand delivered to the crime laboratory themselves. In this specific case, it was hand delivered and it was dropped off inside the laboratory. Inside the laboratory, we have what we call a blood alcohol kit drop box. It's very similar to like a post office box where you go to put in a box, you close the lid, and when you open it, you can't retrieve it anymore because it's dropped down to the base of the box. That box is actually physically located inside the building. You have to have badge access to even get to it. A representative from the agency will have to usually make an appointment. They'll get buzzed into the building. They have a log they have to fill out, and then they're able to get access to that blood alcohol kit drop box. Once the kit is dropped into the drop box, only evidence technicians that have been properly trained in a session or logging in these blood alcohol kits have access to that box.
And once it's been dropped off, is it kept in a secure storage location until you go to access it to test it?
Yes, so once the evidence technician is ready to retrieve the box from the blood alcohol kit drop box, that kind of starts the chain of custody process at TBI, and they will, once they log it in, the first step they'll do is they're following all their policies and procedures. They're going to first open up the kit one at a time. They're going to verify that the information on the blood tubes match, which is what's on the request form themselves. They're going to take a picture of the blood tubes. All the information on the request form, the blood pictures, will be entered into our internal management system. And once they do that, that actually starts our chain of custody. As well, it gives a unique laboratory ID to the case itself. And then that case number is kind of what we track throughout the process at TBI.
And so, and as you testified, you did the test on this particular vial of blood, right? Or vials?
Yes.
Okay. And is the document that you're holding, is that the results of the test on the blood that was done?
Yes, this is a true and accurate copy of my official alcohol toxicology report.
And what is that BAC result?
So I found ethyl alcohol, which is just drinking alcohol that you find in alcoholic beverages, at 0.115 grams percent.
Okay, and is that over the legal limit of 0.08?
Yes.
And what is the significance of the 0.08 number? Why is that the minimum that we use in determining whether someone is or is not impaired?
So at the level of 0.08 grams percent of blood alcohol, it has been scientifically shown that individuals are 4 times more likely to be involved in a vehicular crash. It has also been shown that all individuals are considered too impaired to operate.
You said all individuals?
All individuals.
Is that regardless of age, weight, things of that nature?
That's correct.
And that's been shown in scientific studies?
Yes.
Can you just tell the jury a little bit about how the presence of alcohol above that 0.08 would negatively impact a person's ability to safely operate a motor vehicle? What are the effects of alcohol on that?
So there are both internal and external effects you might see with somebody who is under the influence of alcohol. So alcohol is what we call a central nervous system depressant. So what that means is it's going to slow communication from the brain to your body, and your body back to your brain down significantly. And so external effects you might see on an individual is you could see slow or slurred speech. You could see drowsiness or sleepiness. An individual might have a hard time with walking or with their balance. They might also have what I like to call emotional instability. So somebody might be very happy one second and then they might be really upset or angry the next second. They also have a sense of euphoria, so they feel really good inside when they drink alcohol. Some of the internal effects, though, that you might have with drinking alcohol is you could have, you will have you will have issues with your reaction time. So reaction time is where if something happens to you, it is the time that your body is reacting to it. So in the case of driving, if you're driving and there's like a piece of debris in the middle of the road, it takes time for your eyes to recognize what is in the middle of the road, and then it takes time for your brain to react or to realize what it is and what to do about it. So reaction time is affected. Critical judgment is also affected. And so let's say we use that same flow of debris in the middle of the road. Okay, now what do we do about it? Do we hit the brakes? Do we swerve? Do we try to swerve left? Do we swerve right? Do we have oncoming traffic? Is there a ditch to the right? So all these effects that you're trying to calculate really fast is all being slowed down because of the central nervous system depressant. Another thing that's also affected is what we call divided attention task. So when you're driving is one giant divided attention task. So if you think back when you maybe first learning how to drive, how things can be pretty overwhelming. You're having to maintain your lane, you're having to maintain your speed, read road signs, keep in mind if like other drivers and things like that, all to the point where it may have been too overwhelming to even like listen to the radio at the time. That's because your brain's trying to do multiple things kind of or very quickly simultaneously. And so when you introduce a central nervous system depressant like alcohol on board, it's harder for your brain to kind of go back and forth to those tasks. So you might see an individual who is on a central nervous system depressant. They might be really good at maintaining their speed, but they might not be really good at maintaining their lane. So you might see swerving from an individual.
You talked about external and internal signs or reactions to alcohol, correct? There's 2 different kinds, correct?
Yes.
Is it possible for a person to not be showing many external signs, but still have those internal reactions and still be affected internally by the alcohol?
That's correct.
Would that be, as it relates in this case, to driving and operating a motor vehicle safely?
The internal effects or the
internal?
Yes, the internal effects, even if you don't see any of those external effects that I was talking about, those internal effects of the critical judgment, the reaction time, and the divided attention tasks would still be present.
and could impact one's ability to safely operate a motor vehicle. Correct.
That's correct.
Can you tell the jury, I'm sorry, if you don't mind, please pass that to the judge to be, I think, exhibit number 6. Could you tell the jury the average number of drinks it would take for someone to get to that 0.115 level?
Yeah. So before I can give you a number of drinks, I have to talk about what a standard drink is. So when you go to a restaurant and you order a beverage, sometimes they come in different sizes, different shapes. And so we have to kind of define what a standard drink is. So when I talk about a drink or a standard drink, I'm going to be talking about either one 12-ounce beer, one 5-ounce glass of wine, or 1.5 ounces of hard liquor, so much like Jack Daniels. So to get to a 0.115 grams percent of alcohol, it would take anywhere between 5 to 7 drinks.
Is that for a normal person, or does that change a little bit based on height, weight, age?
Yes, I did forget. I'm so sorry. So I have to also assume an average individual. And what an average individual looks like is a healthy 150-pound person. This would be somebody who is completely fasting, so they don't have anything on their stomach, and they're consuming all of these drinks within a 15-minute time frame. And so if you adjust any of those variables, the time, the weight, if there's food on their stomach, it's going to increase the amount of drinks that somebody has consumed to get to this level.
So if someone was eating food, they would need more drinks to get to 0.115, not less.
It's possible, yes.
So would it be possible for someone to get to a BAC of 0.115 from having consumed one standard alcoholic beverage and also eating food at the same time?
For one standard alcoholic beverage to get to a 115, it would not be possible.
Can you also tell the jury the rate at which an average person would metabolize an alcoholic beverage, meaning how quickly do they go from going up as far as being intoxicated and then falling down to the drink being metabolized? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So when you start drinking alcohol, there's kind of this like almost like a hill or a mountain. So we have one side of the mountain we call it absorption. The absorption phase is the part that is hard to I don't want to say guess, but it's hard to cause or hard to come up with like the rate of absorption because of all the factors that we don't know. So that's where like if there's food associated, how fast somebody's drinking, all that plays into the effect of how quickly somebody can absorb alcohol. Now the downside of that hill is the elimination side, and that's pretty standard and pretty average for everybody. And that's usually between a 0.02 to a 0.01 grams percent per hour. So we usually say one standard drink per hour is the elimination.
So just to clarify, what would be the average amount of time it would take a drink to peak as far as that mountain goes? In other words, what's the amount of time it would take for someone to reach that maximum effect from the drink if they just had one drink?
So once an individual has consumed their last alcoholic beverage, it usually takes 30 to 60 minutes for them to reach that peak BAC.
And then from that point forward, from that 30 to 60 minute period of time, going forward, they would be on the elimination phase.
If they didn't consume any more alcoholic beverages, that's correct.
So they would be going down as far as their levels, not up.
Yes.
So in a situation where someone had been in a wreck, say at 1:49 a.m., and their blood was not drawn until 4:33 a.m., can you tell the jury with that amount of time what their BAC would have been at the time, the first time that I gave you, the 1:49? if we have a 115 at the time it's drawn.
So from 149 to 433, is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
It's about 3 hours. So to do this calculation, you have to assume that somebody is already in that elimination phase. So they've already hit the highest BAC peak that they would have hit. Assuming that 3 hours prior to blood draw, you're asking for the amount of drinks, correct, or the BAC?
What would their BAC, what range would their BAC be in at that earlier time prior to the blood being drawn?
So 3 hours prior, assuming they're in the elimination phase, they could be in a range of 0.145 to 0.175 grams
And that's going off that 115 when it was actually drawn. Since you have that amount at the later time, you can work back to
Yes.
determine that
per cent.
amount.
Yeah, I'm using the 0.115 reported value that I have, and I'm using a calculated range to kind of estimate what it could be 3 hours prior to blood draw.
And that's assuming there were not any more drinks consumed between the two time periods, correct?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, you have to assume that somebody's in elimination phase, and that means they cannot have consumed any more alcoholic beverages after reaching the BAC.
Further questions?
As you see, the cross-examined.
Good afternoon, Agent Kelly. Now, you testified you've been with the TBI for 3 years, correct?
Almost 3 years, yes.
Now, you're not a medical doctor, correct?
That's correct.
Are you considered a toxicologist,
Yes.
forensic chemist, or a toxicologist?
So my degree is in forensic chemistry, but I guess that I'm a little bit confused with the question. So my job title or my degree?
So, I'll strike it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Now, it was your testimony that you performed the test associated in this case, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified that you received this blood kit from your drop box at TBI, is that correct?
So there was an evidence technician that physically received the blood drop or the kit from the blood alcohol drop box, and then after her process is when I took custody of it.
And based on the form that was received October 24th, 2023, is that correct?
Yes, that is when the evidence technician received it physically from the blood drop box.
And so prior to that, you had no knowledge of how that test was stored before you received it, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you spoke a little bit about chain of custody, correct?
Yes.
Now, it was your testimony that someone opened the box prior to you receiving it, correct?
That's correct.
Do you have any knowledge who opened it before you received it?
My evidence technician was the one who opened the box on October 24th.
Okay. And so it was opened prior to you receiving it?
That's correct. When I get custody of it, it's just the physical blood tubes, it's not the box.
And so you're in your position, you rely on paperwork or forms to assume that it was properly handled prior to you receiving it, correct?
Yes, our evidence technicians will follow the policies and procedures and document as they go.
And so you don't have any knowledge as to whether the sample was refrigerated prior to you receiving it or at any point in time in transport or storage?
Before TBI, I don't know, but once it's received from the blood alcohol kit drop box, it is refrigerated.
Okay. So I guess my real question was, so you have no knowledge as to what temperature it was stored at prior to you receiving it?
prior to getting to TBI. Yes, that's correct.
If a sample is improperly stored or delayed, can that affect the results?
It could. The blood tubes that we specifically send out to agencies is that gray top tube, and they have a very specific anticoagulant and preservative in it. That preservative is actually really good at maintaining the integrity of the sample.
But you don't have any knowledge whether that particular portion was done during this blood draw, correct? You weren't personally present when Mr. Singleton's blood was drawn at the hospital, correct?
That's correct.
And so this anticoagulant you're speaking of, what generally kickstarts that? Or what starts that in order for it to preserve the sample?
Let me know if I don't answer your question correctly, but so once the powder inside the test tube is already in the tube, and then once the blood is added to the tube, the nurse or phlebotomist will usually rotate the tube, and that is what mixes the preservative anticoagulant into the blood.
And you have no knowledge as to whether that was done on this one, correct?
Yeah, I wasn't there for the physical blood draw.
Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your testimony was that every person is impaired at 0.08. Is that correct? And you mentioned scientific studies. What studies?
So there is a study called the Grand Rapids study. I don't have the physical paper with me, but that's one of the large studies that was used to help determine the 0.08% limit that was selected for the federal law.
But you don't have a copy of that study with you today, correct? And now, the other things you testified to in terms of characteristics, those are just generalizations, correct? Correct.
Yeah, the external effects specifically are, they're usually within a range of like specific person. So somebody may not exhibit all of those external effects that I mentioned earlier, but the internal effects are present for individuals.
Isn't it also true that the internal effects can be affected by other factors, correct? Such as gender, weight, person's metabolism rate, overall health conditions. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't agree with the internal effects being affected. Usually gender, weight, things of that nature affects the amount of drinks it takes for someone to get to a BAC.
Now, the toxicology report in this case, that only produces us a number, correct?
Yes, I have a reported value.
Okay. And again, in terms of characteristics, your testimony today is not specific to Mr. Singleton, correct?
That's correct. All the effects that I mentioned are for a general person, for a general population.
Now, General McLeod asked you about, based on the result that we have in this one, when the blood was drawn, that number is reflective of what Mr. Singleton's BAC was at the time it was drawn, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so then, we're operating off of one point of analysis, correct? We have the toxicology report. It gives us the blood alcohol concentration. 0.115, correct?
Yeah, I reported 0.115 grams per sample for this blood sample.
And so we're operating off of 1 point of analysis, correct?
So I actually do 2 tests per sample. I don't know if that's what you were asking, but per policy, I'll actually test the blood alcohol or the blood sample twice. And so my reported amount is actually the average of 2 tests that I've done.
Is there a record of that second one?
Yeah, I have it. I have it with me.
Was it provided in this case?
I wasn't asked for that. No.
But you yourself, and not to your knowledge, was there multiple blood draws taken in this specific case?
I don't know. The only blood tubes that I received were the ones from that specific date and time.
And so when General McLeod asked you to testify as to what Mr. Singleton's BAC would have been when he was operating his motor vehicle, you gave it an average, correct?
Yes, I gave a range.
And I believe you also testified or used the word assume or assumption, correct?
Yes, to do that range calculation of the 3 hours prior, you have to assume that somebody is in the elimination phase already.
And so in order to do that, you're actually relying on averages or assumptions when you make that educated, I don't want to call it a guess, but when you make that determination, you're relying on averages and assumptions, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. The average, most people fall within that 0.01 grams to, most people will fall within that elimination rate of 0.01 to 0.02 grams per hour, which is what I use to get the calculation for the 3 hours prior to blood draw.
But again, that's not person specific to Mr. Singleton, correct?
Yeah, it's not a person specific. No, that's correct.
And so you can't testify today with any degree of scientific certainty as to what Mr. Singleton's BAC was when he operated his motor vehicle, correct?
For specifically Mr. Singleton?
Correct.
All my testimony is going to be based off of a general or average person, so it's never going to be based off of a specific person.
And General McLeod also asked you about peak BAC, correct?
Yes.
Now, you gave a time frame of when average people reach that peak, correct?
Are you referring to the 30 minutes to 60 minutes?
Correct.
Yes. Most people will peak between 30 minutes to 60 minutes post or finishing their last alcoholic beverage.
But you can't testify today as to what time Mr. Singleton, in fact, consumed alcohol, correct?
That's correct. I wasn't there that night, so I don't know when the last beverage was consumed.
And you would agree with me that that peak BAC can be different with other factors such as food consumption.
The food consumption can delay the peak, but that's where the 60-minute time frame comes from. So it would be closer to the 60 minutes rather than the 30 minutes.
Would you also agree then that that range for peak BAC can be anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, depending on the person?
Yeah, so can you ask that again?
So for peak BAC, would you agree with me that that range can be from 1 to 3 hours, depending on the person?
Of when peak could happen,
Correct.
would happen between 30 minutes and 60 minutes. So I don't know if I would agree
In
with that.
every case.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have anything today that would support that testimony?
I don't have anything for sure.
And just briefly, General McLeod asked you about what I assume was alcohol dissipation, correct? The rate at which alcohol dissipates?
Oh, the elimination. Yes.
Correct. And again, your testimony, that rate's just an average, correct?
The 0.01 to 0.0. So that's the range. On average, the actual number is 0.015, but we'll give that range of 0.1 to 0.2, and so that encapsulates the majority of people.
And based on that, people metabolize alcohol differently, correct?
Yeah, there are some individuals that can metabolize a little bit more. So there are studies that show that some people can metabolize at 0.03 grams per hour, but that would make their BAC higher 3 hours prior.
But you don't know Mr. Singleton's metabolism rate or when he ate last, correct?
That's correct.
No further questions?
Redirect.
Yes, Judge. Agent Kelly, just for clarification, these numbers, these statistics that you're telling us, this is part of your expert testimony, correct?
That's correct.
You're not just pulling these numbers out of thin air, correct?
That's correct. All of the numbers and calculations I've done is used for toxicologists worldwide, and more specifically in the United States, but can be used in other countries as well.
Okay, so this is what you would do with every case that you get, this procedure that you testify to, and these facts as far as let me rephrase that. The things that you testify to as far as rate of metabolization, the elimination phase of once a person stops drinking, all of those figures in your testimony come from your training and experience.
Yes, all those calculations I just did, I would do for cases.
And as far as you know, in this particular blood test that was done, was the standard procedure that the TBI has for its agents to follow, was it followed to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it was.
Is there any indication or anything that you're aware of that would indicate that this blood was messed with or mishandled or tampered in any way?
No, part of my policy procedures when I'm doing the testing is I will make any notes if the blood is not in good condition. And in this case, I didn't have any notes, so the sample wasn't what I would consider good condition.
And if it had been mishandled or tampered with, would it be like if there would be something blood that would be different or unusual?
With the blood tube itself?
Yes.
I don't know about the blood tubes, but the box itself was received sealed. That's your question.
And once you get it at your lab, it is refrigerated until it's accessed.
That's correct. As soon as the evidence technician pulls the physical blood box, or the blood alcohol kit box from the drop box, after they process it, it'll go into the refrigerator.
All right, no further questions.
Brief pause.
Agent Kelly, based on that line of questioning, again, it's your testimony today that none of that is specific to Mr. Singleton, correct?
Correct. All the calculations and even the external effects are all for the general average person.
And General McLeod asked you about the blood kit and if standard procedures were followed, correct?
Yes, I followed all policies and procedures.
I know you've only been with TBI for 3 years, but are you aware of any situation at the TBI where tests have been tampered with?
at the lab or previous to the lab. Or
within the TBI?
yes, there was an incident before I started working there.
So you're aware that it can happen?
It has happened in the past, but there has been more policies and procedures added in place, and I know that I followed my policies and procedures.
And not specific to you necessarily, but just in a general question. It can happen.
Can I clarify a little bit on the?
Sure.
So it's not necessarily it was a tampering. It was just a mix-up of samples, but the actual blood tubes wasn't tampered with.
Right, but the sample was mixed up, correct?
That is correct. So,
No further questions.
Any follow-up, Julie?
Briefly, Judge, that didn't happen in his case, did it, to the best of your knowledge?
yeah, for the best of my knowledge, I followed all my policies and procedures, and my report is also verified by another scientist before the report is officially released.
And Mr. Atchison asked you multiple times if these figures and statistics that you're giving us relate to Mr. Singleton directly. Does that matter for purposes of what you're explaining to the jury about how intoxication can impact one's ability to drive safely?
So yeah, my testimony is never going to be for a specific person. It's always for a general or average person of what effects you might see on the individual, for specifically externally. The internal effects, though, is what, especially at a level of 1.5, is what you will see in the individual.
No further questions.
Anything else?
And further, Judge.
Thank you, Agent. You may step down. Are we releasing her from her subpoena?
I guess no, Judge, I don't have any other witnesses.
So, thank you, Agent Kelly. You're pretty good. So the state is rested.
Yes, Judge. Actually, if she could stay, I don't know if Mr. Singleton is going to testify or not.
Agent Kelly, I'll try to get you out of here, but apparently you can't.